right. Hello and good afternoon, or whatever time you're watching this. My name is John Moynihan. I am the Executive Director of the Firehouse Center for the Arts, and I am here with Leslie Pasternack, who is a theater artist as well as the wonderful director of our most recent production of The Revolutionists. Hello, Leslie.
Hi, really glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time to come and chat and talk a little bit about The Revolutionists and why everybody watching this should come see it.
The main reason why everyone should come and see it is it's extremely entertaining. Extremely entertaining. The Revolutionists is about many things, but something that I think people don't often realize is it's a piece of meta theater. It's talking a lot about entertainment, and it has a lot of fun discussing theater, the purpose of theater, making jokes at the expense of theater, in addition to talking about history and the real questions of how can artists contribute to making the world better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note, I have a few questions here, but you brought up something that I was going to ask at the end, but I'll talk about it now.
Let's jump into it.
Jump right into it now. So as a theater artist, as an educator, and as a director, what does it mean to have the opportunity to be back performing and directing in person in a theater?
Oh my goodness, it means absolutely everything, especially because this production, as you know, started off while we were still dealing with Omicron. So this incredible cast that I'm so fortunate to work with, for astoundingly talented women, we all started over Zoom. And then we moved into the rehearsal studio working through masks. And then when finally we were able to welcome them back to the stage to rehearse and then start performing fully, it feels tremendous. And I'm struck every single time I see the show about different lines that really echo for the moment we're in now. And one of the things that the playwright Lauren Gunderson has written that is expressed so beautifully is she says, the time we spend together when we gather in person is real and is meaningful. And I have to admit that I get a little bit misty every single time I hear those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of Lauren Gunderson, you know, as a director, how does it feel? You know, what does it mean to you to be involved in a show with, you know, written by a woman, driven by women, and directed by a woman?
Yeah. Well, really wonderful to have the opportunity. I was extremely excited when you reached out to me and offered this project as a possibility. Lauren Gunderson, again, she writes really entertaining plays. She aims for a sweet spot where she often addresses women figures from history or issues of importance to women, but she puts entertaining first, and she builds a lot of humor. She weaves into her stories a lot of humor, and as I said, a lot of savvy about how to create a stage entertainment. But it's also gratifying to work on Lauren Gunderson's play, The Revolutionists, because most people watching this may not know that Lauren Gunderson is one of the most frequently produced playwrights in the United States year after year for like the last 7 or 8 years. And yet she's not terribly well known or feted within the Broadway circles. But she has been bringing plays that regional theaters, massive regional theaters and community theaters and universities and even high school programs have been embracing because they're so pertinent, they're so funny, and they have intense heart. So yeah, I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to work on this play. And I just get a tremendous kick out of it because it's really, really funny and also happens to be about the French Revolution. How often do you get, humor and guillotines in the same play?
True, very true. And one of my favorite parts of the play is when they very pointedly mock Les Miserables.
Yes,
a couple of different times they mention that, and then even at the very end, Olympe has a couple of lines from Do You Hear the People Sing?
Yes, the play almost has, you don't need to have an extensive knowledge of history or of theater in order to enjoy this play, because not only is it written so skillfully, but it is being performed by a fantastic group of actors, several of whom will probably be familiar to the Firehouse audience. But she does sort of almost put Easter eggs in there that you'll get extra pleasure if you're someone who is a fan of musical theater or who knows a little bit about the French Revolution or even just has heard the name Marie Antoinette. You'll get a tremendous kick out of this.
The whole let them eat cake moment
the whole let
in
them eat
this
cake moment.
is very funny.
But it was revelatory to me to learn about it, because the key figure, sort of the protagonist of the play, is a woman named Olympe de Gouges, and the character is a sort of over the top theatricalized version of her, but based on a real historical figure who was a feminist, an abolitionist, and a playwright in the time of the French Revolution, and who died for her beliefs and then was forgotten and buried by French history for 300 plus years, and only in recent years has been really recognized and celebrated by the French. And so Gunderson has also done a tremendous thing by bringing Olympe de Gouges to the attention of American audiences, and how wonderful that she wasn't just an important fighter for freedom and democracy, but she was a playwright.
Right.
So the play is very much about watching a playwright suffer through writer's block and ask the question, what does it mean to be an artist at a time of great social upheaval? And that is, of course, very relevant today.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, as a piece of historical fiction, how do you feel that the themes and the messages of this particular play transcend the time and place to meet up with today?
Yeah, it's been spooky, frankly, because when you first asked me to consider this, and I took a look at the play in the fall, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so reminiscent of everything that in American politics we've been going through in the last several years, with the division and the noisiness. There's a line that she has where she says, history is propelled by stories, and humanity gets very dark when the wrong stories are leading us. And I thought, oh wow, and then just since we moved into our final weeks, of course, we've had the development of the war in Ukraine, and the sense of, once again, oh my gosh, how prescient this play is at pointing out the cyclical nature of conflict, and how democracy needs to be defined and redefined and fought for and protected in every generation. And there will always be artists, and artists will always be trying to negotiate their relationship to that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the arts play a pivotal role in how the stories are told and how the stories are remembered. To your point, saying Alam's line about how history can become very dark if depending on the story. I mean, we've long relied on the arts, on minstrels and on playwrights to tell us our history.
Yes.
And so it seems very interesting and very relevant that this particular play that takes place during the French Revolution continues to be relevant to now. It's almost it kind of comes back to that same fact about how, like you said, it's cyclical.
Yes.
History repeats itself. And
there's one teeny moment in this play that gave me the shivers, that when she wrote it in 2016, 2017, when it was starting to get traction, there's a character from history, Charlotte Corday, who commits a crime, and they're suggesting to her, maybe you could wear a sparkly mask when you do it. And she says, I will not wear a mask. And then she follows up by saying, I want people to know that I did it. Right. But suddenly one day I heard her just saying, I will not wear a mask. And I thought, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, that again, that argument, right. So it has those two meanings right there. The other thing I wanted to say about the relationship to art and this very stressful moment is, I know, like everyone, I've been sitting at home for several years saying, what do I want to watch on television tonight or on streaming to help me escape from the stress of the world? I have sometimes found it difficult to watch something purely comedic or purely escapist. It felt too light or almost disrespectful to what was going on. I find tremendous comfort in this play because it makes us laugh and laugh and laugh, while also treating the seriousness of the world with some dignity and respect, if that makes sense. So I think it's a wonderful balance in that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And what do you feel the specific actors, how do they contribute to bring the story to life?
Oh my gosh, I cannot begin to express how this is a dream team. Comedy always functions on timing and pacing. And because there are so many ideas and there is so much verbal witticism in this play, it needs to pick up and move. And each of the four women in the show, with very distinct characters, and movement and posture and gesture and use of their voices just picks up and runs with this without giving you a sense of they're being frantic or rushing. It just flies for the amount of ideas and the amount of laughs that they're putting in. And each of them are just beautiful inside and out. And they are such complements to each other. We see such a range of strengths and a range of visions of womanhood in this cast. It makes me really excited, and they're just funny. They're really, really funny.
They are. It's a great group, and yeah, as you said, both Orlick and Mary. Orlick plays Marianne, and Mary plays Olympe. They have both been on the stage before. I believe
Michaela as well. I think wasn't she in the Open? Yes, but wasn't she also in the Durang piece that you did, the Sasha and Sonia? Sorry,
I don't know. I think she told us the last time she did a show here was besides Tito this past summer. She did Spring Awakening.
Oh yes,
here back in 2013, 14.
Yeah.
So was it Sasha? Vanya, Sasha, Sonia, and Spike.
Yes. And Bronwyn will be familiar to some Seacoast artists from doing work at Prescott Park.
Yes.
As well.
And she was also brilliant in Bretton Reese's most recent Frankenstein.
Oh, that's right.
She was in that as well.
At the Ring.
Yeah.
Really great group of women.
Absolutely. An absolutely great group of women, great group of talented, exceptionally talented women that are, as you know, are meeting the moment and getting those laughs, and they work very well with each other.
They do,
which is such an important aspect of a small ensemble piece.
Yes.
If one piece is wrong, the entire thing falls apart.
And I also do want to say that the other joy in this production is that the visuals and the sound are fantastic. I was really, really blessed to have an amazing creative team. And I have to say, they include some wonderful gentlemen as well as wonderful women. And so there's just an incredible inspiration and just really high production values brought to the visuals. So if you're going to have to see a play with a guillotine in it, you want it to really take your breath away.
Absolutely.
I think it does.
Not literally.
Not literally.
Well, and you mentioned how, when since you've been home for the past few years, you've been what you're watching on TV. Sure. and things like that. One of the things that I really tried to lean into over the past couple of years is when we were told we had to stay home for 2 weeks, we couldn't do this. The first thing that everybody turned to was their favorite movie, their favorite musician, their favorite TV show, which is the arts, which is always the arts, and why it's so important to support the arts.
Yes.
And to that end, people try to do virtual theater.
Yes.
And virtual theater isn't theater.
I during the entire time that we were locked down, as it were, I, like many folks, and we were all watching each other. There was a lot of great support, I think, among the companies. I pivoted to Zoom. Yep. I was teaching acting classes, directing classes, and playwriting on Zoom, and also presented some short play festivals, wrote a play of my own specifically for Zoom. And what we kept saying to each other again and again is, we are creating a hybrid experience in order to get us through this time. We're learning a lot about where do you put your eyes when you've got the camera and you have what you're doing. But this is not theater. This is not theater. And there definitely was, especially after the summer of 2021, when people were able to begin to open things up again last fall, there was much less interest in returning to create Zoom theater. I do think there has been wonderful motivation among some of the best resourced theater companies across the world, like the National Theater, to start really investing in cameras to document theater so that it can be shared more widely across the world, so that if you aren't there in the room at the moment, you can still experience something that was made for the stage. So I think that's fascinating as something that we've learned and that people learned audiences might like. But Zoom theater, no, not so much. I think we all want to get out of those little boxes.
Yes. No, absolutely. And to that same end, what would you tell someone about why they should experience the show in person, especially as we're returning to doing live theater?
Well, I would have to say, I think this play, The Revolutionists, is a wonderful investment of someone's time and a small number of resources to come and be with like-minded group of people who want to be together in the same space at the same time, laugh together, have some really intelligent questions posed, some thought provocation, not too heavy, but just some things to help you kind of process the big questions of the time. And also, I just have to say that the conditions inside the firehouse are very comfortable and have made me feel comfortable as a first space for me to enter into is in my getting back to the world post COVID. So I think it's comfortable and welcoming here, and I have just tremendous confidence in the quality of the entertainment that people will be seeing.
I agree. I mean, this show, it's almost like we didn't even miss a step over the past 2 years, just in terms of the quality of the programming that is coming on. And one of the things that we've been thinking about over the past couple of weeks, especially as gas prices are going up, and we're thankful they're starting to come back down.
Yeah.
But for a couple of weeks they were fairly
Intense.
high. We weren't sure what it was going to look like. The Firehouse is a great alternative than having to drive down to Boston.
Yes.
Save on the gas money and come see a high quality show right in your own backyard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, in your opinion, what is the most important message that the audience, or you hope the audience, would take away from this production?
Shockingly, for a show that is about such a tumultuous period in history, the play is just threaded full of hope. And the hope that it finds in the live presence of other people. It shows a group of people who don't know each other very well coming together under adverse circumstances and supporting each other. And it leaves on a very, very hopeful note. And that's something that I think all of us have so craved, because there aren't any easy answers. The situations that are facing us now, personally and societally, are complex, and roads forward are going to be complicated. But we need to be able to lean on each other for some support, despite differences. And this play addresses, again, lightly, but it addresses so many of them. It addresses issues of poverty and racism and misogyny and breakdown of friendships and people irritating each other. And are there enough snacks? It deals with all of these different issues. Whether you're having a good hair day or a bad hair day, it addresses all of these things. So I think the message of hope was one that was very welcome to me. And from what we heard in the audiences over the weekend, it seemed to resonate really loudly with them as well.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that the audiences, and even some of the feedback that we've received, has been, people weren't sure what to expect.
Sure.
And they never are, especially when it's a new piece that they haven't experienced before. And universally, the response has been that it was far better than they expected it to be.
Yes.
Which is always good, but also it begs the question, what were you expecting?
Well, and this is tricky, because notice we've been talking about the show for several minutes and we haven't given you a plot summary.
Right.
It's in part because we don't want to give things away.
Right.
It is an absolute treat of a couple of hours spent and quick ones, less than 2 hours, that flow by, spent in the company of like-minded, highly intelligent women, based on historical characters at an intense moment in history, where the jokes just keep coming, and then your heart is just touched multiple times, over and over again in the play.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite parts of the show is just the way she wrote Marie Antoinette.
Yes.
Which is clearly, like as we were talking about, a lampe de gouge in this piece is not historically accurate. A lampe, it's a character, like a caricature.
Yes.
And very similar with Marie Antoinette, the over the top of her love of ribbons.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
it's just
and
things like that.
She marches into the playwright's office saying that she hopes to have more understanding and connection with people through minor revisionism.
Right.
So she definitely is launching her own PR campaign. But what you see happen is Gunderson kind of cracks her open and shows the human heart inside the character very, very movingly. And Michaela Bishop is just so extraordinary at that, as is Orlik Guzman at reminding us that at the same time the French Revolution was happening, that slaves in French colonies were rebelling for their freedom. And as Bronwyn Ritchie playing Charlotte Corday shows us that even among those who were fighting for democracy, there was so much violence and tumult about what's the best way to do that. And then you have Mary Sapp, who's playing Olympe de Gouges, who's kind of in the place of the playwright, but she's also sort of in the place of the audience, just wondering, where do we go next? What's the right move to make when things are so confusing?
Right. I can't remember all of the ways that it's described throughout the when they do the little description, but one of the things that I love on their website, when they ask, is it a play in a play? Is it this? Is it that? The truth is, it's all of it.
It's all of those things.
It's all of it.
It's all of those things. And again, for those people in the audience who really enjoy musical theater, you'll get a little bit of that too. There's even a little bit of singing in it.
Yes.
It is a play with some singing.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
All right, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
and this has not as much to do with the show, but more about your own philosophy. And what does performing or theater in general mean to you?
Well, I am an actor's director first, in the sense that my strength is working with the human embodied people on stage, and then I am just gloriously lifted up by the designers around the actors who make that happen. But I really think that theater is about showing human beings in their vulnerability, confronting obstacles, working to overcome them, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. And hopefully that brings us back to our own humanity and helps give us some perspective on our own struggles. It's very easy to get caught up in your own head and to think, woe is me, the world is coming to an end. It can be really strengthening to be in a live space in particular, and take your focus off of yourself and put it onto some other characters. And theater is, in a way, a rehearsal for life. It helps you ask, what if, what would I do? And also, just for me, every time the applause begins, I just have such a moment of gratitude for having shared that time with those people in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2 hours of your time to kind of forget about everything else that's going on in the outside world. It's 2 hours to sit, and as you said a few times, sit with like-minded people who enjoy a nice show in a comfortable setting.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like it in the human experience.
Absolutely not. And Lauren Gunderson, goodness, when she wrote, the time that we spend together is real. She couldn't have known that we would be so grateful to have this play after all of this time in COVID confinement at home.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Leslie Pasternack, the director of The Revolutionists. The Revolutionists is going to be running here at the Firehouse Center for the Arts in Newburyport for the next 2 weekends, Thursday through Sunday. You can visit our website, www.firehouse.org, to find out about this wonderful show, get your tickets, find out what else we have going on here. But Leslie, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity, not just to talk to you now, but to helm this incredible team with this beautiful show. I'm looking forward to seeing it a bunch more times before it closes, and I look forward to seeing your audiences here.
Yes, excellent, as do we.
Okay.
Thank you so much.